Hey, this is Matt. Once again, what about the end of the review? This is another paid request. This time for 10. Thank you so much for that. And for those interested in requesting pretty much any type of reviews or topics or commentaries or reactions or anything in between, feel free to send it either directly to my PayPal or join my Patreon. Both links are down below in the info box. And like I said, sorry for the background noise, the fans and such. Just topsy-turvy weather nowadays. But A Lonely Place to Die from 2011, give or take. That's the film for today, and I'd never heard of this film. Now it stars someone named Melissa George, who does a pretty good job, and the first half of this film is fairly good. She's part of the crew of 5 mountain climbing folks that go up, and you get some great scenery of the Highlands of Scotland. And, you know, in the beginning of the film, there's almost a disaster, and especially when you get to the second mountain climbing sequence, there's some oh shit moments where if you have vertigo, the movie may freak you out. There's some POV of rappelling. There's some really stunt sequences, and it's about, again, 5 people with intermixed with these intense climbing bits that find this kid buried alive with like a breathing tube thing, and it's a Serbian child. They dig it up, she's there, she's scared, and then they get chased by these 2 people, one of them played by Sean Harris. He was the bad guy you would see in some of the Mission Impossible films like Rogue Nation and then Fallout. Who's your cold, calculating, evil, very cold villain. And the first half of the film, or first chunk of it, is this chase. Item intermixed with great scenery, capable acting, some intense mountain climbing bits, like Terror getting hit by rocks, and like oof, like just the hits and the impact. Stunt were very intense. Then it goes a bit off. It's not horrible, it's not terrible, it's just not nearly as good as the first half. I don't think this is a bad movie. It's a decent film. But it could have been a great movie, and it just becomes a decent movie. And I got into the second half, because again, the first half is pretty self-explanatory, pretty straightforward. Melissa George, a strong leading lady, because Hollywood says that's never happened before, even though it's happened shitloads of times, ad nauseum. Meaning, you could get tired naming all the films that have had that, but then Hollywood wants to say that never happens. I'm like, yes, it does. Plenty of times. This is another example of that. And Melissa George does a good job. The kid is not annoying. She's not irritating. She's not doing stupid stuff. It's like, oh, why are you doing that? She's not doing that. That's good. Again, the other actors do their jobs fine. Never been to Scotland? Looks like a beautiful place. Based on the scenery here. If anyone's in Scotland, you let me know. But it looks like a beautiful place. But I did get into spoilers starting now. I have to. About halfway through, maybe a little bit over halfway through, maybe about 50 minutes or so, it cuts to these mercenaries. One of them is Eamonn Walker, the guy who's the bad guy in Blood and Bone, who faced off against Michael Jai White. He's been in other stuff too, Eamonn Walker. Him and this other guy are mercenaries, hired by a war criminal, who's Serbian, who wants his daughter found. And you realize that Sean Harris, this other guy, kidnapped this girl from this war criminal. So then we're getting dialogue from the mercenaries, and who's on this job. The people who are left of our main characters, they get to a town who has this festival called the Beltane Festival. And then the 3 spoilers. Starting now, spoilers. The three get to this cop, and then Sean Harris is talking with this other guy, and Sean Harris trying to bullshit his way that he does have a girl, even though he doesn't. And you have this conversation about that I didn't care about. I'm like, no, movie, you're like stopping. It's like you stopped the tape, you took it out, and now you put another VHS tape in of a different movie. Where now Eamonn Walker and Sean Harris and these other, they're getting a shootout in this town, and some people get killed, and then the guy working with Sean Harris is chasing Melissa George and the kid, and they gets into a house, and the house is on fire. Meanwhile, Eamonn Walker gets Sean Harris, and it's not horrible. It isn't. You know, the house on fire, Melissa George pushes the guy out the window, boom, fucks that guy up. Sean Harris gets taken, now Liam Neeson, and taken to the war criminal thanks to Eamonn Walker, and the war criminal's like, you've done a good job, I owe you one. And this guy, I'm going to bury him alive, and now that my daughter, I know she's safe with this lady, and we're going to bury you alive. It's like, imagine cliffhanger. Like, I don't know, do I have, is that, I'm on here? Probably not. Trying to see if it's, I have a DVD of it over here. Anyway, imagine cliffhanger, right? Imagine when you got to the third act of cliffhanger. Of course, a lot of other Stallone films, but the one I'm fucking looking for, I don't have. It's over there then, damn it. But imagine at the end of cliffhanger, right? The third act. John Lithgow. Okay, imagine Janine Turner is kidnapped, and then they get away, and then Michael Rooker and Stallone have to drive. Meanwhile, these mercenaries that are looking out for John Lithgow, who fucked him over in a previous deal, they're also looking for John Lithgow, and they all come upon this town, and then John Lithgow is fighting with these mercenaries while Michael Rooker and Stallone are going through this town, and while John Lithgow is fighting with these mercenaries, and then the mercenaries, I don't know, one turns on the other, and then Stallone fights John Lithgow in this house that's burned, and it's like, wait a minute, it's no longer a cliffhanger. It may not be bad, but now you turn to a different movie. Like this, it's called A Lonely Place to Die. You're in a fucking town full of people, and it's not a lonely place to die. It's not terrible, it's just, why didn't you just stick to the landing of being kept in the woods? And this whole thing with the mercenaries that I don't give a shit about, and I like Eamonn Walker as an actor, but it's like, this is extra business that did not need to be in there, and didn't really bring a lot of interest to the table. It brought kind of, it's like the director didn't think that this Mound stuff was good enough. It's like, this isn't good enough, we gotta have more. It's like, no you don't, because again, it just felt like you switch channels, you're in a different movie. Or you switch channels, now you're in the sequel. And like Sean Harris, he was a cold calculating villain, but now he's a guy trying to bluff his way with these mercs, and that made him less scary, made him less intimidating, made him less of a villain. I mean, he's a villain, but less. When, you know, Eamonn Walker fucking, and like Eamonn Walker, as you don't know anything about him other than he's a mercenary, and like this is he's the guy who takes out the main villain or kidnaps him for the war criminal. Like, I don't give a shit about this war criminal guy. I get that the little girl's his daughter, but like part of the finale again, it's a merc getting the Sean Harris to this guy, put him in this fucking thing, bury him. I'm like, it just, the movie got less interesting as it went along, which is not what you really want to do. Because again, the first half, the scenery, the 5 people that don't have a lot of training, they have to figure out how to survive, and they're just, again, the stunt sequences of the mountain where, really painful stuff. Even later on after that, where there's a bit where some of them have to fall into water, they go through the rapids and trying to survive through these rapids, and it's like, that's the last 30 minutes. It's not even like Shoot to Kill, where Shoot to Kill allows in the mountains, and then, in the last, 5-6 minutes, it's this quick chase because this woman's been kidnapped. I mean, even Shoot to Kill did that better. This, I'm like 20 minutes in, I'm like, wow, this is pretty damn decent. Then I'm like 50 minutes, I'm like, where's this movie going? And then when the movie's over, I went, it's alright. Could have been great, and it was just, the director, again, he was not, dude, your first instinct, you should have stuck with it. And again, to say for the last time, so I don't keep repeating myself 85 more times, it's not like the third act is awful. It's not like the third act is terrible. It's not like it has an out of the blue, downbeat ending, and what the fuck. No, it doesn't. There's some, decent stuff at the end as well, to be fair. But it's just, it could have been a 4-star movie out of 5, but instead it's like maybe a 3-star out of 5. I don't know if that makes sense. Maybe 3.5, maybe, probably 3. I keep wanting to say he wasn't, it wasn't that the director wasn't, he wasn't confident. He was not confident enough in his setup and story. If it felt like, oh, I need more. I need to add more. I need to add this and this and this. I need a gunfight sequence. I need to be in a town. I need a little quick at a police station. I need a burning house. Like, you didn't really need that. And if it stuck with this, keep following this intense chase scene in the mountains, where you have a woman who knows about mountain climbing, that knows the landscape, that knows how to do that, versus against these 2 guys that don't know it, they just know how to kill. And so you have a woman using her instincts, using her know-how of the land, pieces of climbing equipment. I did do more of a take on Cliffhanger and less a take on whatever the hell it wanted to be in the third act. So it's not a bad movie at all. It's not an awful film. It's still worth the watch for anyone who sees the poster. Or it's not a bad film at all. It is a decent watch. It's just, when the movie turns, it just felt like a different movie. It didn't feel like a bad movie. It just felt like a less interesting movie. And that's where the reaction came from. I liked your first movie more. Your second movie was not... It was alright, but it should have just been alright. Because your first half was pretty damn decent. And that's where that kind of reaction comes to play. I wish it had stuck with the landing of the first bit. And again, it's not that I think all they did is just a complete shit show. Not in the slightest. But it just... Director, be more confident in your initial story. And keep it in the mountains. and strictly in the mountains, have it end in the mountains, and I think it would have been much more of a successful venture. That's just me, though. As is, it's still a decent watch. So, at least I saw it once. With that said, thanks for watching. We'll see you guys later. Bye-bye.